After studying this module, you will understand the exact meaning of investment, learn about the factors affecting investment decisions of firms, understand the concept of desired capital stock, understand the accelerator principle, understand the Q theory of investment, know about credit rationing constraints faced by the firms. The previous module emphasized the importance of one of the most stable components of aggregate demand, which is consumption. In contrast, the present module attempts to understand the behavior of one of the most volatile components of aggregate demand, which is investment. Investment is an extremely important economic variable as the future growth rate of aggregate output in an economy is positively associated with the quantity and quality of investment. You will learn about this relation between output and investment in later modules. Accordingly, GDP growth and pattern of business cycles depend on the level and type of investment. It also acts as an important link between the goods and asset market in the economy. A change in interest rates influence investment spending through the monetary transmission mechanism. In turn, this affects aggregate demand and several other important economic variables in the economy. For all these reasons, it is important to study the factors that affect investment, which is the subject matter of this module. Investment, definition and concepts. We have discussed the concept of investment earlier in detail in the module of national income accounts, simple Keynesian model as well as in the IS curve. Here, we briefly describe the term. Investment is essentially an addition to productive capacity of the economy. In national income accounts, investment comprises addition or accumulation of physical capital that includes expenditure incurred on new buildings and structures, business plans, machinery and changes in inventories. Expenditure on human capital may also be considered a part of investment expenditures, as it adds to the productive capacity of the economy. However, in practice, the expenditure on private education is considered a part of private consumption expenditure, while public expenditure on the education is a part of government expenditure. Similarly, investment that is made by government on infrastructure such as roads and highways are also not considered a part of investment expenditure, even though these enhance the productive capacity of the economy. You may note that investment as defined here does not include financial expenditures. Example, buying bonds or shares of a company, as may be generally referred to in common parlance. However, residential spending on housing is a part of total investment. You may also note the concept of net investment that is computed as the total or gross investment less depreciation. Only if net investment is positive, there is addition to the existing stock of capital or capital accumulation, and an increase in productive capacity takes place. The theory of investment that we discuss in this module is confined to investment by firms in plants and machinery or Other forms of business fixed investment. The theory of investment attempts to identify the factors that affect investment decisions. In this context, the relevant factors include interest rates, sales, or more specifically current sales, output, stock, market and future expectations. In earlier modules, investment was considered to be a function of interest rates. In fact, it is the real interest rate that is more relevant in determining investment. The real interest rate is computed as the nominal interest rate minus inflation. The role of this as well as other factors is discussed in detail in the next section. Factors affecting investment decisions of firms. Remember that the stock and flow concepts we discussed in the national income accounts. A stock variable is measured at a point of time, example, at the end of a year, while a flow variable is measured over a period of time, example, per year. Investment may be defined as the flow of spending or expenditure that results in addition to existing physical stock of capital. The flow of investment expenditure depends on several factors that are: first, rental cost. The higher the cost of capital, the lower is the investment expenditure. A firm uses inputs of labor and capital to carry on production. Typically, firms determine their optimal or desired level of capital stock and then make investment decisions in order to attain these optimal levels. A firm will add to its stock of capital or undertake investment if the contribution income earned of this additional unit of capital MPK is greater than the marginal rental cost of this unit of capital. The optimum capital stock is attained when MPK equals the rental cost. The rental cost of the capital RK may be computed as follows. RK is equal to expected real interest rate, which is denoted by R, plus depreciation. As interest rate varies, rental cost of capital vary. The optimal or desired capital stock will accordingly vary. It is important to note that it is the real rather than the nominal interest rate that is relevant in this context. The real interest rate may be computed as the nominal interest rate less expected inflation rate. That is, R is equal to I minus pi E. Only when the expected inflation rate is 0, the nominal and real interest rate will be equal. In other cases, where there is a positive inflation rate, nominal inflation rate will be higher than real interest rates. For example, if nominal interest rate is 5% and expected inflation is 2%, the real interest rate will only be 3%. Also note, since we do not know the future inflation rate, we include expected inflation rate in place of the future inflation. However, from the above we can see that the rental cost of capital may be written as RK is equal to I minus pi E plus delta. The determination of desired capital stock by a firm can also be seen graphically. The marginal productive capital is downward sloping. As the cost of capital increases from R0K to R1K, the desired capital falls from K0D to K1D. Second, depreciation. Depreciation is the consumption or the loss in capital due to usage and normal wear and tear of machines, as well as technological obsolescence. Depreciation may also take place due to economic reasons such as fall in price of certain objects due to a shift in market demand away from these. The depreciation rate is also likely to vary according to the kind of capital under consideration. For instance, buildings and other structures have a lower rate of depreciation, while technical equipment such as automobiles, cars, computers have a much higher rate of depreciation. As depreciation increases, it becomes more costly to maintain the present level of capital. You can see from this relation, that is Rk is equal to I minus pi e plus delta, that this raises the rental cost of capital and would therefore reduce the level of desired capital stock and hence affect investment negatively. Third, level of output. The desired capital stock is positively related to the level of output, both current output and the future expected levels. However, it is more strongly related to the estimate of permanent output. Remember, we learnt in the previous module on consumption theory that consumption is more likely to be influenced by permanent income rather than the transitory income. Similarly, the level of investment is also more likely to depend on estimates of long run output or permanent output rather than just the level of current output. For the projects that have a long gestation lag, such as power stations or infrastructure, output will be produced only after a long period of time. On the other hand, output by a software firm could appear in the market in a very short period of time, maybe a month or so. Therefore, both long run and short run output would affect investment, the nature of the impact being determined by the composition of aggregate investments. In case a large fraction of investment projects are long term in nature, the impact of permanent or long run output would be more important. Fourth, fiscal and monetary policies. Both the fiscal and monetary policy influence the level of investment. Several fiscal policy tools such as a tax on corporate earnings in the form of corporate income tax as well as benefits to firms in the form of investment tax subsidy affect the rental cost of capital and hence the desired level of capital stock. While the former increases the rental cost of capital and hence reduces the desired capital stock, the latter reduces the rental cost of capital, increasing the desired level of capital stock. The higher the desired level of capital stock, the higher is the investment expenditure. Thus, fiscal policy through corporate taxation and investment tax benefits affect the desired capital stock and hence the level of investment. Higher taxation or lower government expenditure results in lower interest rates. You may recall that the IS curve shifts to the left in both the cases. These were discussed in a previous module. These are also shown in figure. An IS curve shifts to the left, the interest rates would decline. A lower interest rate increases the demand for capital and hence investment in the economy. On the contrary, a lower taxation or higher government spending results in higher equilibrium rate of interest and discourages investment and demand for capital. You can try to see this through a rightward shift in IS curve. Monetary policy also affects the demand for capital by altering the interest rates. A lower interest rate increases the demand for capital. This encourages firms to invest more and expand the capital stock. Fifth, stock market. A booming stock market, that is, when the share prices are high and rising, would encourage investment. This can be explained as follows. When the share or stock prices are high, a firm is able to meet its financial needs by selling relatively fewer shares. That is, it is able to generate funds for investment easily by selling its equity in a booming stock market. This link between the stock market and investment was emphasized by Tobin in the Q theory of investment that we'll discuss later in this module. But before that, we'll discuss the accelerator theory. Accelerator theory, investment and output. The simple accelerator theory. The accelerator principle was first suggested by J.M. Clark in 1917 and has been widely applied since then. The net investment is the increment to capital stock of an entity. Capital is an essential input required to undertake production. Hence, an important decision for each entity is to determine the optimal or the desired level of capital stock and to attain it. Logically, it can be seen that the desired level of capital stock depends upon planned output or sales. After the firm determines the desired level of capital stock, it can undertake additional investment to close the gap between desired and actual capital stock. Of course, there will be no investment if the actual capital stock exceeds the desired levels, and it will be zero if the two are exactly the same. The accelerator principle is based on the above reasoning. It explains a simple proportional relation between desired capital stock and the level of output at any time period t. That is, k dt is equal to alpha yt, where alpha is greater than 0. In equation 1, alpha is the desired capital output ratio. In the simplest model, the cost of adjustment and of closing the gap between the desired and actual capital stock are 0. Therefore, the gap cannot be closed immediately in a single period by stepping up investment. Further, it is also assumed that there is no depreciation of capital. This implies that the gross and net investment are equal. In such a case, the firm will invest an amount that is just sufficient to close the gap between the desired capital stock in period t and the actual capital stock in period t minus 1, that is, IT is equal to k dt minus k t minus 1. Thus, the gap between the actual and desired capital stock is closed in each period. This implies that the actual capital stock in the previous period, that is t minus 1, must be equal to the desired capital stock in that period. This should actually be true for all periods. Symbolically, it can be put across as k t minus 1 is equal to k dt minus 1. And from 1, we have k dt minus 1 is equal to alpha yt minus 1. Using all these, we can write investment as it is equal to alpha of yt minus alpha yt minus 1, which is equal to alpha of change in yt. Equation 6 implies that there is a simple proportional relation between planned investment and change in output. Assume that the desired capital output ratio alpha is 2. In that case, as per the accelerator principle, if the output changes by 2 units, investment must equal 4 units. Stated simply, the accelerator principle asserts that investment in a period would depend on the growth of output. Now, the flexible accelerator principle. The above simple accelerator principle holds only when the adjustment costs of implementing the investment projects in a firm are 0. However, it gets modified when we introduce the adjustment cost and bring the situation closer to reality. When the firm starts making new or additional investment, it may have to temporarily stop or impede the existing lines of production. When such adjustment costs are high, the firm may decide to undertake new or additional investments gradually in smaller steps over time. This is unlike the case when it was assumed that there are no additional costs associated with the adjustments, so that the gap between the desired and actual capital stock was closed in a single stage without any lags being involved. In the presence of adjustment cost, equation 2 may be written as it is equal to theta k dt minus kt minus 1, where theta is between 0 and 1. The investment equation 7 describes the incomplete, partial or lagged adjustment over time, where only a fraction theta of the gap between the actual and the desired capital stock is closed instantaneously in each period. Using 1, equation 7 can be rewritten as it is equal to theta brackets alpha yt minus kt minus 1 brackets close. Equation 7 describes the flexible accelerator model. This is closer to reality and hence gets wider support from empirical studies. There are certain important observations that can be made about the flexible accelerator principle. First, since adjustments are not made in a single period but over the several periods, equation 3 cannot hold. Hence, a result of the form obtained in equation 6 is unlikely in the presence of adjustment costs as in the case of flexible accelerator model. Second, the adjustment parameter theta is likely to be dependent on several factors such as interest rates, tax benefits associated with investments of a firm, etc. Hence, it may happen that a higher rate of interest may result in lower investment and hence lower the adjustment factor, other things remaining constant. Hence, the accelerator principle is consistent with the inverse relation between interest rate and investment. Third, the accelerator principle applies to both the investment in fixed capital as well as the investment in the form of inventories. This has also been empirically tested in several studies. Tobin's Q theory, stock market and investment. James Tobin based his theory of investment on Keynes' basic ideology, that is, it is not optimal to start a new enterprise at a cost which is higher than the one in which an existing one can be purchased. Accordingly, he came up with his theory of investment in 1969. Tobin's Q theory emphasizes the link between the stock prices and the investment in the physical capital. The theory asserts that investment would rise when the share market is booming and the share prices are high, and investment would fall when the stock market is down and the share prices are falling. The theory can be better understood using the concept of Q ratio. The Q ratio of a firm is defined as the ratio of an estimate of the firm's assets in the stock market to its replacement cost of capital. The replacement cost of capital is the cost of purchasing the firm's existing stock of capital at the prevailing prices. In the equation form, Tobin's Q may be expressed as Q is equal to capital V divided by capital K multiplied by PK. The numerator V in the equation 9 is the stock market valuation of the firm's assets, primarily its stock of capital. The denominator in this equation is the market value PK of the firm's assets K. Now, if Q is greater than 1, then the returns from making investments are higher than the associated costs. Hence, investment should rise. But if Q is less than 1, then the returns from making additional investments are lower than the associated costs. In the latter case, investment is not profitable, so that firm would not like to make additional investments. In an efficient stock market, stock prices should be able to accurately reflect the value of the firm's assets, implying a strong positive relationship between stock prices and investment in physical capital. The empirical studies have shown a positive but not very strong relation between the two. This could be because the stock prices reflect not just the value of firm's capital but also various other things such as firm's reputation. Both the theories discussed in this module, that is the accelerator, simple as well as the flexible, as well as the Tobin's Q theory, are based on the assumption that the capital markets are perfect. This is discussed further in the next section. Credit rationing. The theories of investment assume that the capital markets are perfect in the sense that capital is readily available to them to undertake investment at the going rate of interest. But in reality, the commercial banks may impose a maximum limit on the amount it wishes to lend to firms in order to prevent the possibility of creating bad and doubtful debts. Sometimes the central bank also imposes credit rationing norms that restrict the lending abilities of commercial banks. The central bank do so to improve the quality of assets in the banking system or to restrict the credit and money supply when it is following a tight monetary policy. It is also possible that smaller firms and borrowers may face severe credit constraints than the large borrowers. Due to credit rationing, a small firm may have to rely on its own internal funds, its retained earnings or the undistributed profits, for carrying out additional investments. Therefore, the investments may also be positively associated with the level of operating surplus or the internal funds of the firm. Apart from this, the investment may also be positively influenced by the level of cash flows of the firm. Summary: investment is the most volatile component of aggregate demand. Investment comprises addition or accumulation of physical capital such as new buildings and structures, business plants and machinery, and changes in inventories. Investment is essentially an addition to the productive capacity of the economy. Investment depends upon several factors such as rental cost, depreciation, level of output, fiscal and monetary policies, and the stock market. The higher the rental cost of capital, the lower would be the investment expenditure. An increase in depreciation raises the rental cost of capital and reduces the investment spending. The level of investment is more likely to depend on an estimate of long-run output level or permanent output rather than just current output. Both fiscal and monetary policy influence the level of investment. Investment is positively affected by a booming stock market. The simple accelerator principle posits that there is a proportional relation between planned investment and change in output. The flexible accelerator model allows for the existence of adjustment costs in the analysis. Tobin's Q ratio is defined as the ratio of value of firm's assets in the stock market to its replacement cost of capital. Tobin's Q theory asserts that investment would rise when the share market is booming and the share prices are high, and investment would fall when the stock market is down and the share prices are falling. The level of investment is likely to be higher the greater the internal funds and the cash flows of the firm.